Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you have not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to join the community debate, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate forum to keep up to date with the community debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs us alongside each of these shows while they're live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly though, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by UK Truth, The Plain Truth, Sleeping Warrior, Ranty Flat Earth, Paul, Flatten Earth, Chocolate Saiyan, and Arwin. Good to have you all.
Hey.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Hello.
Hello. Hola.
Good. Morning.
We're joined by Luke M. How you doing, Luke? Hello, Luke.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey.
Going very well. Thank you for being here. You can join in the housekeeping.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad to be here. You know, I was listening to your live broadcast, but I wasn't right up to what you were talking to, and I was wondering, if you, because I never heard you guys talking about the Michelson-Morley experiment. Are you familiar with that?
Sure. Should we do the
Because I
housekeeping
think-
first, Nathan, though?
Sorry, say that again.
Should we do housekeeping first, Nathan?
Yeah, that'd be great. Any signs of curvature?
No.
No.
Any signs
Afraid
of...
not, Nathan. No, absolutely no sign of curvature whatsoever anywhere to be found.
Excellent. Far more enthusiastic than on the last show. Any signs of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety, Ranty?
Absolutely no sign of axial rotation whatsoever to be found anywhere.
Yeah, and that's what I think the Michelson-Morley experiment scientifically proved, that the Earth does not move.
How do you prove a negative?
Well, the Michelson-Morley experiment, he was the first physicist to receive the Nobel Prize in physics in 1933. And he was well respected, well known. And his experiment, because they were talking about the Earth spinning, right? This is what we've been told. And he said, okay, well, if the Earth's moving, I want to measure it. And so he beamed a light through a prism, and he could measure it to a fraction of a second. The Earth's supposed to be spinning, as we're told, 32 feet per second. His experiment, when he conducted it, showed no movement at all. Nothing. He could detect no movement. So as far as that, his experiment showed the Earth is not moving. Then,
yeah, I agree. But
and
how
then
do you
I-
deal with ballers that claim that it was an ether drag test and he failed to get a positive result, therefore the ether doesn't exist?
okay, so then that's right. And then Einstein came along and said, "Oh no, the everything matter's contracting." So he couldn't detect movement because everything's moving, and when you move at the speed of light, you can't detect. That's the nonsense that's been perpetrated. So Michelson-Morley's no idiot. He took that exact same experiment, put it on a Lazy Susan, and spun it, and then did the exact same measurement and measured the movement. If you can't measure movement, then his experiment on the Lazy Susan would have shown, again, no movement, but it detected the movement exactly as the speed he spun it. And that's just ignored. So it's a scientific fact this Earth does not move. And in fact, it makes perfect sense because like you say, like we all can observe when we go outside, nothing's moving. We don't move. The air moves. The solar stars above us move, but we're not moving.
Not a scientific fact. It's not been established with any sort of scientific validity. You can say the Earth is obviously stationary. Fine, I agree. But to say it's been scientifically verified to not be moving is nonsense. It's just not the case. So the experiment, you're conflating terms when you say they're measuring and then say in the experiment. Well, experiments aren't performing mathematics. They're establishing the cause of an effect by varying the presumed cause of the effect. Well, if it's to be asserted that in this experiment it's disproving that the Earth moves, well, that would be an assumption that you can vary and manipulate the presumed cause of that effect. Well, if you can let me know how anything's being varied to determine that Earth is or is not moving, then I'd love to hear it. But I absolutely assure you that this also falls outside of science. So to declare it as a scientific fact is unreasonable. It's an axiom, it's obvious, yeah, but it's not science. Sorry.
Well, when he if you look at the like I've read the experiment and I've seen his drawings of the experiment, and he can measure movement. Like we're very good at measuring movement. I'm sure you'd agree. Like if a car's moving at 50 miles an hour, there's many different ways to establish that movement. And
is that measuring? Sorry, just need to clarify something with you, Luke. And is that measuring of something, maths or science?
Well, I'm confused at your question. So what I mean to say is if a vehicle is moving, you know, when you put the whiteboard and you put the black and the white, and if a movement moves between those 2 points and you know the measurement of those 2 points, you can definitively track speed and movement, right? And if the Earth is moving, it would be detectable. You would be able to, his experiment was able to detect motion within a fraction of high probability, like very, very accurately. That experiment, when he stuck it on an object that he did physically move, was able to detect that movement. But it wasn't able to detect movement when it was just placed on a stationary table.
Yeah, that's not an experiment.
Well,
it's an interesting bit of kit, and it's an interesting interpretation. But what was the presumed cause in his experiment?
Well, what he had was a beam of light that he stuck between a prism, bounced it off 2 mirrors that were at different spaces, and then they bounced back to a single point. If our celestial body was moving, he was going to be able to detect it. It showed nothing, so he detected no movement. But then the theory was said that it was contracting, and light moves at the speed of light, and the theory of relativity that negates that, so he wouldn't have detected any motion. That's what the explanation was given.
I see. Can I ask a question then? Sorry, Luke. So did he also detect no unicorns?
Well, if you say, like, if you and I were driving in my truck and I said, "Oh, we're driving," and you say, "Well, I don't know if we're moving," you can do an experiment to detect how fast or if we were moving at all.
That wasn't my question. In the quote unquote experiment, were any unicorns detected?
No, he wasn't looking.
So hold on. So it's proof of non-existent unicorns then. It disproves unicorns because it didn't detect them.
Well, it was detecting. He was looking to see. He wanted to measure if the Earth's moving. He wanted to know how fast it was moving. That was what his experiment was.
Okay,
to do.
so if I rerun the test but assert that I'm detecting unicorns, does that make it valid that I've disproved unicorns with this quote-unquote experiment? Because I'm going to declare I'm testing for unicorns by spinning a light at different speeds in different directions.
Well, of course not. No.
So why would you assert that it disproves that we have Earth turn?
The only explanation I can give you is if it was turning or moving, it would be detectable. You'd be able to measure it.
I agree. But what I'm saying is the fact that a piece of measuring equipment didn't detect something isn't proving the cause of an effect, so it's definitely not an experiment, and it's unreasonable to declare non-existence based on this quote-unquote experiment. In the same way it's unreasonable for me to declare I didn't detect unicorns. Now, that's not to say that I'm asserting the Earth does turn, far from it. I'm just saying it's not reasonable to assert it with scientific validity when it's not science, because it isn't. Super chat from Colin Cherner. Thank you very much for smashing the super chat, Colin.
Oh, sorry about that. I didn't mean to talk over you. But if you wouldn't it be logical to assume if that apparatus is designed to detect non-movement or movement, to show that that would detect that, you would have to move what you're trying to detect to see if that's actually doing that effect. Would that not be logical? So, you know, like, so if you're saying their apparatus is designed to detect movement, you would have to move it to show that it's detecting it. It's like me, a thermometer, it can measure the temperature. If I crank up the temperature, the thermometer will rise. If I reduce the temperature, the temperature will drop. So I could just show that it's measuring something. So wouldn't that be another aspect of that? If you're going to use a measuring device, which would be that apparatus, wouldn't you have to do both, like to show it's trying to detect that motion? You understand what I'm trying to say? Does that make any sense?
Well, the way I look at it is if I have a radar gun that gives me a speed of an object moving and I point it at a vehicle that's parked and I get no detection, I think it's accurate to assume that it's not moving. But if I take that same body and then move it and point that same device at it and get I can now measure something. I think it's correct to assume that that is a valid scientific experiment, because when he stuck that same apparatus on a merry-go-round and moved it, he did detect accurately the movement of that. So I don't know. I think it does follow the scientific experiments to show something.
Well, he showed the rotation of the apparatus, but not the actual rotation of the Earth. That's my point. You would have to either start rotating the Earth to show that that apparatus would detect.
Independent variable cannot be a man-made device, but as far as I got it from John eventually, you can still use equipment as detection equipment, measuring equipment, to basically confirm it, as long as the independent variable itself is not man-made.
Right. The phenomena that you are studying has to be occurring in the physical and natural world, because if you've got a man-made device and you're trying to figure out the cause, then man making the device will always be the cause of that effect in every single instance. So that's not what science is interested in. Naturally occurring phenomena. Step 1 of the method. Observe a phenomena. Then you formulate hypothesis and assume what the cause of that phenomena you observed in step 1 actually is. You also formulate a null to the hypothesis. That is to say that it is the complete contrast of your presumed cause. If I have this, my presumed cause, then I cause the effect. Your null being, if I have this, the cause, then there is no effect or zero difference. I do not cause the phenomena to occur. So that is what you have in a hypothesis. You'll either, when you go forward to experiment stage, which absolutely can and does most times include man-made equipment, but what you are essentially doing is varying the presumed cause of the effect. And if you vary the presumed cause and it causes the effect, then you invalidate your null, which is to say that you did not get zero difference. You caused the effect, validating the alternative hypothesis. So that is a successful experiment. So when you declare that you point a radar gun at something, take a measurement, and that's performing science, it's almost offensive to me, because that's not science. You're not varying the presumed cause of a phenomena you have observed. You're measuring the speed of a man-made device with a man-made device. So it means nothing in terms of science. It's a very useful measurement. It doesn't mean I deny the technology used in radar guns. It just means it's not science. It's not proving the cause of an effect. That's it.
Okay. No, I understand what you're saying, Nathan. Okay, well, I actually did do a scientific experiment. I was deducing that we're told space is a vacuum. I theorized that if you had a rocket or a propellant inside of a vacuum and you discharged it, there's nothing for it to push against. And so I surmised that you couldn't move in a vacuum. If you were, in fact, inside an endless vacuum, you would not be able to move from one point to another with the technology that we've been told we have, or NASA has, or whatever. So I took a 5-foot long, 6-inch clear tube. I put a solid rocket model rocket inside of it. I draw down a near perfect vacuum, and I filmed it, and I discharged the rocket, and it fired, but nothing happened. The rocket didn't move, and that was a scientific experiment that I conducted, and I did it with my kids. And then we put the rocket back in the same tube, did not have a vacuum, and fired it, and it did exactly what you would expect. It exploded, blew the back end of it out. So I believe I correctly proved that you cannot move with a solid rocket propellant inside of a vacuum.
So that would be a demonstration of your assertion that a rocket cannot propel itself in a vacuum. It's not a scientific experiment because you're not observing a naturally occurring phenomena and then trying to establish the cause of said phenomena. So it's definitely not science. I'm sure it's an epic demonstration, and I'd love to see it. If you can present it, that'd be absolutely fantastic. If not, Arwin absolutely loves looking up videos and presenting them to the audience.
Okay, yeah, I'll send you the video in this chat. I think I can do that.
Perfect.
That was hilarious.
So the other thing I'd say is it Luke?
Yes.
The other thing I'd say, Luke, is that's an excellent argument, and I've heard it put forward many times, and the demonstrations are also equally excellent. However, and don't take this badly, it's not an argument that I would put forward, and I'll tell you why. The reason I wouldn't put it forward is because it automatically underlines the fundamental premise that we do have a second law of thermodynamics violation in the sky. Just bear with me a second, I'm going to unmute while I just ask my kid, or I won't bother. Eleanor, please don't do that. Please. That probably won't work. So it basically kind of begs the question for them. So when you do that, you're working on the premise that there is a region in the sky that defies the second law of thermodynamics. But in that imaginary region, you're testing the premise of whether or not, in a region that can't possibly exist, whether or not rockets would work. So for me, it's just as simple as saying you can't have gas pressure without a container. You don't necessarily, as you are doing in your example, begging the question for them, assuming that space is a region that rockets could potentially go to, and then debunking the notion that rockets could travel through that region that you've begged the question for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I get it.
It doesn't change that I'd still love to see it. I've seen it before, but it's cool, right? I've seen people do it with just as simple as a vacuum. So they let off the rocket with a vacuum right next to it, i.e. like a vacuum hose. And then they just, you know, if you're sucking the air away from the discharge of the rocket, nothing happens, right? It goes into the vacuum. It fills the space.
Right. Yeah. I just find, well, you're right. It's an observation. But what we're being told, in my mind, it just solidifies that what we're being told is definitely not, I just can't reconcile it being the truth, you know?
Indeed. I mean, it's a terminology issue as opposed to a validity issue. You know, it doesn't mean that some people who have observed something and just simply declare what they observe. For example, there's the north end of the Isle of Man on screen right now. Well, that's observe and declare. Well, is there something suddenly fundamentally wrong with declaring a concrete noun? No. If it's obviously what you say, then there's no issue. Nobody's ever going to disagree with that. Now, I can say that with confidence now, having studied exactly what that particular piece of land is to the point of nausea. So I'm happy to declare that that is the north end of the Isle of Man on screen right now. Concrete noun, piece of land. We do see it. It is there. Same as this boat and Barrow Inverness behind it. It is there. We do see it. It's all in the frame of the picture. The Earth is obviously and observably flat. Those sorts of declarations aren't a stretch. It's not an outrageous claim to say boat in the distance, right? It's distance being irrelevant until you push it far enough for it to not be seen on a reified model and then turn it into science, i.e. a phenomena. So without having observed a phenomena, then we're not doing science, because that's all we're interested in if we're performing that method, the physical and natural world. So beyond that, you know, unfortunately it doesn't mean that your demonstration is any less valid. You know, if you are to get into begging the question about the vacuum that can't exist in the sky.
Right. No, I get it. I understand, and I appreciate your consistency and your accuracy and the way that you present those arguments, because I listen to you all the time, and I think it's awesome. Are you aware of that? What are those? A surveyor surveyed, I think, in Huntington Beach, 137 miles, and he certified it as level as a surveyor, and he says, I'll give you 20 grand. Anybody can come down here and show me some curve.
I didn't know that. Where can we find that?
I think if you just search on YouTube $20,000 surveyor, I think it'll come right up. I just saw it a few days ago.
Well, this is a really good moment for me to plug Roxanne's channel, because she's actually interviewing that guy and premiering it tonight from 8 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. So check out Roxanne, the Globalist Denier. That exact guy that you're referring to, 20 grand, she's interviewing him.
Oh,
give me a link.
okay.
Give me a link. Give me a link to the premiere, and I'll spam it in the audience chat.
It's not. She hasn't uploaded it yet. I just know that it's coming on at 8 p.m. tonight. So just keep your eye on Roxanne's channel. It's going to be very interesting, because this guy's totally unknown to us. Nobody knows who he is. His name's Howard. And big shout outs to Roxanne for spotting this guy and getting him on. So,
okay, so I'll do a proper shout out for a channel then. So it's Roxanne the Globalist Denier. That's her YouTube channel name. So check it out. 8 p.m. UK time. It'll have gone out yesterday when this goes out to the Nathan Oakley 1980 audience. So that's only applicable if you're watching this live on Nathan Oakley channel. But for the Nathan Oakley 1980 audience, check out Roxanne the Globalist Denier YouTube channel, and you can check out an interview with that chappie and his massive flat plane that we all dwell atop. I don't know if Ranty's got anything to add to this, because I mean, of all of us, I think Ranty's gone out and observed the flat plane we dwell atop more than anybody, right, Ranty?
I have, yeah. Yeah, it's there's going to be a lot more seen soon as well in the next couple of months. Got so much stuff coming up, it's going to be awesome. I was going to go live tonight, but Anthony's just told me that at 8 o'clock, Roxanne's doing her live premiere. That's a bummer, because that's the time I'd scheduled to go live.
I've said this to you, I said this to you last time, Ranty. I've just published my upload schedule. What you need to do is just get a little diary planner and just pick a day that you're going to do an upload and a live show. So it's only 2 a week, but then you can dedicate your time to getting your really slick edited presentation ready for a Tuesday evening at 5 p.m. and then every Thursday at 10 p.m. or whatever time you decide, you go live and you just have an upload schedule. That's what I did, you know, with a bit of help from Anthony. You know, and it's massively served me well, you know. So I would just suggest, even if it's only a couple of dates in the week, you know, you've got an upload schedule of 2, 1 live, 1 not live, but just stick to it, and then it doesn't matter. I said the same exact thing to Arwin. You know, get a time that you're going to do your show. Arwin decided it was going to be daily, so I was like, pick a time daily, and don't worry about what anybody else does. Stick to your schedule.
Yeah, I think I'll go live at 7 tonight as well. I do want to talk about it. So that's the issue. See, I'm away at Scotland next week, so I'm leaving tomorrow evening. So this will probably be the last chance I actually get to do a live stream. But there's some things coming up, and I'm looking for. I think you're coming down to North Wales, aren't you, Anthony? I sent you the message, and you said you would.
Yeah, I've said I would. I can't remember. Yes, I'm coming. I can't remember the dates, if I'm honest, but yes, I'm coming.
Right, because obviously if anybody lives in North Wales and wants to actually come down, or from Liverpool or anything like that, it's not that far. And I am going to be doing an observation down there. It's going to be fantastic. We've got a fishing boat that the skipper's going to be able to go 10, 12, 15, 20 miles away, wherever he wants, have communication with him. You come back, go forth. We've got all the heights, all the dimensions. We've got all kinds of stuff, infrared. We've got P1000s, P900s, drones, you name it. It's all going off. So if anybody wants, this is what I'm going to be talking about tonight on my stream. But I want to see if anybody wants to actually meet me there, you know, and we can just go down and do the observations and stuff. So it should be cool.
Cool.
I had an observation experiment that I thought would be pretty cool. Was if you had two boats and one person on a shore, and you sail the boat out or drive the boat out until the person on the shore just got out of sight, and then had the second boat from that location go as far until that middle boat couldn't see the second boat. So you got one boat where the person in the middle can see the person at the shore and then see the other boat, and you could see from when you go to the horizon where you can't see, where some people try to say, oh, that's the curve, or they try to say, oh, it's refraction that lets you see. But if you go to the next boat, I guarantee you all three people could see each other if you had a powerful enough telescope or a laser. That was my prediction.
Yeah, I think you know, doing any observations from the shoreline when you've got the tide coming in and out, unless you actually do it at exactly high tide or exactly low tide, when you've got the tides pushing in and receding, that's the best time to do your observations, because any other time you are going to get localized bulging because you'll have the tide trying to push in, you know, right. And that is going to increase the height of the water at the shoreline. It's just the way things work. But if you was on a boat a mile out to sea and you had another boat along that was also a mile out to sea, but if they were, say, 10 miles apart, they wouldn't be suffering that same kind of pressure up against the shoreline. So, yeah, I think I know where you're coming from, but I have a feeling that you could probably have someone on shoreline trying to view a boat 10 miles away. And when when you can no longer see them, I would imagine if you had boats that were 10 miles apart, you would be able to see them. But from the shoreline, you wouldn't. Right.
Are you familiar with the naval rocket commander? I can't remember his title. I listened to an interview with him, and he was on a naval ship, and he was hearing about flat Earth, and he thought they were crazy, and he dismissed them. But then they were talking about, you know, how you can see and what the curve is supposed to be. And he actually fires rockets or teaches the people how to fire missiles from ship to attack another ship. And he was saying with his optics, he says, I can easily see line of sight a ship 50 miles away. He says, I can target with a laser and fire missiles at a ship line of sight 50 miles, which, of course, if we're told what the curve is supposed to be, that's impossible.
Yeah, I mean, I've filmed a boat that was 29 miles away, so I have no doubt that's possible. Like I say, but all of the observations that I've done up to now currently have been from the shoreline. But the best observations are when there's very still water. So Red Pill Philosophy released a video where it was super calm, super calm, and he saw for forever. It seemed like he filmed forever, shore to shore. And this is what we're finding, that water being a liquid should be affected by the gravitational force of the Earth. So it should curve. So you can't have days when gravity doesn't decide to work. It just doesn't happen. But when you get very still water, it lays flat. It lays completely flat.
Well, that makes perfect sense. Well, first of all, when people try to argue the proof of gravity, this is what I say to them. It is called the theory of gravity. By definition, there must be other explanations to explain the phenomena that they try to contribute to this magical fairy tale force of gravity. It's an improvable thing, because if it was a fact, it wouldn't be called the theory. It's nonsense. There's no fake mystery force field pulling shit anywhere.
No, and Nathan kindly asked me to talk about this. But yeah, whenever I go down and film Barrow or wherever, or look over to the Welsh mountains, you always see an awful lot further when the water is incredibly still. It's just the way it is, and you can't have flat water on a curve.
Without a doubt.
Hey, John, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, just what the last person said, I just caught it. He said if it, I don't know how he worded it. First of all, there is no scientific theory of gravity. Right? That's number one. Number two, all scientific theories are facts. So don't get confused with the colloquial meaning of theory and equivocate that with scientific theory. Whoever that was talking, I don't think I know him.
Luke.
Say again?
Does that make sense, Luke?
No, not really.
Okay, I'll try and rephrase it. Colloquially, when you say theory, it means mystic meg prediction. So the same as a woman in a circus with a crystal ball. That's what we colloquially mean when we say theory. Now, if you're in a scientific context and you say theory, then you mean a scientific theory. And a scientific theory is based on the proven cause of an effect and other proven causes of an effect. In other words, a scientific theory is based on the results of an adherence or multiple adherences to the scientific method. That's a scientific theory. Now, unfortunately, that gets slightly confusing when you have pretender clowns hijacking the terminology and performing the old switcheroo when they colloquially describe something as a theory. So, in the
Theory
case of...
is actually an idea, rather.
Right, an idea of gravity. Yeah. Same applies to laws. So this term gets abused by the pretender clowns of scientism, not scientists, because they would just be people performing the scientific method to go on to form scientific theories, but instead people who describe things like gravity as a law. Well, a scientific law would be something that we observe always in nature. Unfortunately for the pretender clowns who declare gravity as a law, there is no observable, demonstrable, obvious law in effect always when describing gravity. So just to summarise, because I went a bit of a tangent there, if you're saying theoretically and you mean colloquially we are making a little guess about something, then that's perfectly acceptable. However, when in a scientific context, theory means the proven results of an adherence to the scientific method.
Okay. No, I get it.
You got muted?
No, we can hear you, Arwin.
No, Luke. Luke was talking and then he muted. So
no, he said he gets it.
I was just saying I understand. That's why I muted it. I just didn't want any background noise on my end. That's all.
To be honest, Luke, your timing is impeccable in terms of you're a flat earther, clearly, and you're presenting some of the understandings, shall we say, from what I'm now going to call the old school flat earth. And your terminology is akin to that old school flat earth in the respect that you are naming, measuring things and such like as experiments. Now, I've said this many times also, we are all guilty of this. I find myself accidentally doing it from time to time. So it's not that I'm having a go at people, and you're a useful parallel because we're just saying the same thing to you, ironically. Is it ironically or coincidentally? No, coincidentally, as Bob Nodell. So we're saying the exact same things to him, but you're saying, I understand. He's saying no. So it's a great parallel to have you saying, scientifically, I've validated you can't have rockets in space. I've done an experiment. And us say, that's a great demonstration. However, you don't need to beg the question and assume the sky is a vacuum and it's not an experiment. And you've just been willing to go, fine, I get it, great.
No, it makes perfect sense. No, it's right. Like either we're going to follow the same standards and come to an agreement, and at least we got to have a baseline, and we have to be accurate in that. So I appreciate it.
It's a minor modification. You know, we're so used to saying experiment or saying scientifically when we refer to a measurement. It's just how we've been brainwashed, and it wouldn't work for them to do it, those who are deceiving us, that is, the pseudo-scientists, if we didn't mix up the two terms colloquially generally anyway. So, you know, it's something that now it's been highlighted. I'm sure this will ripple through the community, if there is such a thing, within Flat Earth, and people will, over time, appreciate the benefit of this.
I think it may be caused by language, futurist language influences. That it's been made common to basically call an idea a theory, or to call a test an experiment. It's like the popularization of the scientific method, but in a cultural way, not in the actual way. And it's very weird what they did.
I'm really sorry to check you on that, Alwyn. Sorry to interrupt. I've got to make a slight correction. I'm not being pedantic. This is just factually accurate. Again, if you're talking in a scientific context and you say the word test, then you ipso facto mean a hypothesis test, because you're talking in a scientific context.
That is pedantic indeed. And I wasn't actually placing it in the context of scientific, just in the general talk way. People call things a theory while they're ideas.
Sorry, say that again, John.
Game rooster, man. I can go home. Because that's the first thing I thought. When he said test, I said, whoa, it depends on what context you're in. Right? We could be in a university, we could be at school, and they say test. Well, that has a certain meaning. We all know what that meaning is. However, when you're in a scientific context and you say test, well, that's an experiment. Right?
Well, yeah, an experiment is a hypothesis test. So if you're talking about science, then you say test. Well, you mean you're going to be testing something within the scientific context, your hypothesis. So
Yeah.
that's what a test is in science, a hypothesis test. Well, its alternative name, hypothesis test, is experiment. This is where the main issue at the moment lies. People are calling observation and declaration, or measurement, an experiment. And it's not. And if we're talking, and we are most definitely talking in the context of the physical and natural world when we're talking about the debate about the shape of it, that's science. So as soon as we say test, we mean hypothesis test, aka experiment, unfortunately.
Can you put me on screen, Nath? I want to...
It would be my pleasure, Ranty. It's been a long while.
It sure has. I'm not actually presenting any evidence, but I want to talk about this meetup that I want to do. 23rd of March. So 23rd of March, we have this car park here. This is where I'm going to be doing the observation from. This is where the observations are going to take place. So we've got over here, we've got this estuary that comes out, and this is where the boat's going to leave. So the skipper is going to head over towards the wind turbines here, and then he's going to be, you know, essentially going round the back of the wind turbines, just messing around here, and we'll be walkie-talking or talking on the telephones, and we'll just be discussing where to go, GPS, all this kind of stuff, and we'll be doing the observations from here. Now, the reasons I wanted to do this is because we know that the boat is going to end up going into an inferior mirage. It will start to, you know, that's what will happen as we're trying to view it. And the people on the boat are going to be lowering all kinds of stuff down into the inferior mirage, lights, infrared light, laser beam as well. And I have an infrared camera that will hopefully be able to pick it up. So we've got P1000s there, they've got drones, there's all this kind of stuff going off. So this will be on Saturday, the 23rd of March down here, just in Prestatyn. If you go down from Prestatyn, you just go down to here, and this is the car park where we'll be, say 10 AM. So if anybody wants to come down and meet us, Tony, you'll be there as well, won't you?
Yeah, where does this fit into the lunar calendar?
This is 2 days after the full moon. So it's all So I've scheduled it so that it all fits in perfectly for the best times for the observations. Skipper's happy to do all this kind of stuff. And the good thing is, with him having GPS on his boat, we'll be able to know exactly where he is when the boat's no longer visible, and we'll be able to get some really good data as well with the inferior mirage and stuff. So, and it'll just be a good place to hang out for a few hours as well. So that's where we'll be.
What you want to consider doing is having a word with Dorchi Daka.
Yeah.
He said that next time there's something happening, he wants to know because he wants to be there. So have a chat with him and see if you can get something sorted.
Okay. Yeah, I will do.
Just do a proper plug
So,
before you end. Just do a proper plug. Time, date, location, all again.
okay, so Saturday the 23rd of March, 10 a.m. At 10 a.m. the boat, or we're hoping that the boat will be able to leave from this location here. So it's going to come out. I'll be talking with the skipper.
Stop. What is that location? What's the exact address?
This is Kimmel Bay. So the boat will be leaving from Kimmel Bay into the North Sea. And here we were down at Beach, just off Beach Road. There's a car park just down here. Beach Road West. The car park on the seafront, 23rd of March, 10 a.m. And this is where we'll all be set up with we'll have telescope, P900, P1000, infrared camera. The guy on the boat will have a P1000 too, so he'll be able to film back at us. There'll also be all kinds of gadgets on the boat as well, so that we can hopefully see through the inferior mirage as well. And that's where we'll be. Is that all right?
Excellent plug. Hopefully you get a whole bunch of people to come and join you.
And also, the month after, 2 days after the full moon, I'll be doing I'll be going up to Loch Ness here, and I'll be looking across this stretch of Loch Ness here. And in this particular case, there will be drones with a helicopter, well, helicopter drones, and there'll also be plane drones as well. And we're going to attach lights and all this kind of stuff on them. We'll have altimeters on them as well, so that from 21 miles away, when they raise up and raise down, and I'm trying to view them with the P1000 from Fort Augustus over here, as soon as I can see the drone itself, let's say it's at 100 feet, I can say, yeah, I can see it. That kind of kills the ball off there, and then, you know, so we can do all kinds of cool observations. The drones will be flying up and down this loch, and yeah, we'll be able to get some good observations done there as well.
Of Nessie.
And hopefully see Loch Ness as well. Loch Ness Monster.
Just a myth.
Exactly.
Very good. Excellent.
So that's what the plans are.
So that people don't just leave this with the with Nessie in their mind. Why Loch Ness? What's significant about Loch Ness that makes it useful, Ranty?
Okay, well, Loch Ness, it's surrounded by mountains, so it's probably the longest stretch of water we have that's basically non-tidal. Obviously, it's surrounded by mountains. It's very long and very narrow, as you can see. And this stretch where the red line here is 21 miles. Now, it's a perfect observation. The P1000 has no problem seeing at 21 miles away. When you get to 30 miles away, it's going to struggle. But 21 miles is just about its limit, really, for actually picking things out and seeing stuff. So having somebody with a drone at this edge here who's able to raise it up and raise it down with a light on is going to be sensational, because I'll be able to see it from Fort Augustus. The fact that it's non-tidal means that I'm hoping that the weather's going to be quite good. We're not going to get a lot of mist over the loch. And I'm trying to time it to the second day after the full moon as well, because that always seems to be the best time for doing observations. So, fingers crossed, we can get some data in this location. It's a long way to travel, I have to say. It really is, because it's in the wilderness. It really is. And it's
I'm going to make a prediction.
Go on.
This is a scientific prediction, just to take the piss out of the ballers. I'm going to predict that for every time the second day after the new moon period is present, when we do any observations, the Earth's flat. But for the rest of the time, because any obstructions curve, it's a ball.
Not a scientific prediction. A scientific prediction would be a hypothesis.
Oh.
Well, yeah. So the reason why I chose this location again, Nathan, it's just completely line of sight from one end to the other. 21 miles of landlocked water. You can't ask for anything more. If there's any kind of curvature going on, obviously water being a liquid, it should conform to the curvature of the Earth. In which case we should not be able to see it at, say, 200 feet in altitude. And because we've got these altimeters on these drones, we'll know exactly the height that we can observe them from one end to the other. And I'm going to make a prediction that we're probably from an elevation of essentially 6 feet. I would say that we're going to probably see the drones easily at less than 100 feet above the water.
Nathan, we need to give Zach a shout out.
Yeah, go ahead.
Zach, are you there, sir?
Yeah, how we doing, gents?
Very good, sir. Long time no speak.
Yeah, I really have a question for John. I have an idea, and I don't know if it's possible
hey, hold
or
on
not.
a second, Zach. I got to go for about 2 minutes. I'll be right back. Hold that thought, man.
Okay, yep, no problem. Love the show, guys. This has been going nice and smooth today. I love it. Besides that first, I don't know, me and Adam had some jokes, but I don't really want to say them out loud over on the air about that gentleman that called. But yeah, he was definitely had no idea what science pertained to or the scientific method, or I couldn't believe you let him go on as long as you did, Nathan. I thought you were very polite, letting him speak his jabberish for the 3 minutes you allowed.
It's cultural science speak.
Cultural science.
What's going on?
Why not call it science speak? As in, it's not actually science.
This might create some discussion. I don't know if you saw my screen. I was actually looking at the definition of science, and we can wait till John comes back and answer that question. But as I was looking online, if you look at the basic definition of science, it basically means knowledge. And I think saying science, you could say, well, that's knowledge, but the scientific method is the method of gaining knowledge. And I think, we always say definitions are important. And if you look at the etymology of how we got science, if I can find it, where's it at here? I found this little graph. Where'd it go? Adjective. Looking for the noun. You look at this little graph here, it starts like, this is kind of how we got to the word science. The first initial part was to cut, to split, to know, to separate one thing. The next one is to know, to separate one thing from another. Then it goes intellect or intelligent, skilled. Then you go knowledge, a knowing, expertness, whatever. Knowledge, learning, application, corpus of human knowledge. And then into the mid-14th century, what is known, knowledge of something acquired by study, information, assurance of knowledge, certitude, and certainty. So I think when we say science, are we saying the whole body of our knowledge? Or, or are we talking about the scientific method, which is a mean to gain a certain type of knowledge? That's why I think this knowledge thing keeps coming up to me every time we talk. What are we talking about? What type of knowledge are we gaining here? Because whenever time I think science, I think knowledge. And
well,
if John's listening,
it's the last two words. So do you want to read the very last two words that you just went through on that list?
Sorry.
That's okay.
You want right here?
Sorry, I'm back. What's up?
Yeah, I'll just round out this point, John, and then I think it was good times for all that. I had a question for you. So the last two words, what are they? Certitude
and certainty, whatever. I can't talk today.
Certitude, yeah, and certainty, yeah. Right? So those two words mean to be empirical. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree.
So the scientific method gives you an empirical result. So the only way to comply to those last two criterion are to have an empirical method.
Right.
to
Well, that's
interrupt.
why I was saying that's like we should probably need
Sorry
to
to
start saying
interrupt. I just
scientific
see.
method.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just saying I think we need to start be more specific, saying the scientific method, because generally the word science, knowledge, you know, and even applying it that in that frame, like in a sense, I have knowledge that my daughters exist. That's certain. I have certainty and certitude about that. There's no scientific method about it. I just know she exists. You understand what I'm saying?
Right, but we already went over these. I already had a presentation. We're going to do another presentation on science. Science, the root word scientia, and it comes from another. I don't think that's the final root word. I'd have to look it up again in the Latin and the French. It just means knowledge. Just that one term, right? It just means knowledge. However, when you say natural science, then they are more focused on the method to achieve that knowledge. Right? So natural science means something. Now, you have different types of sciences, right? You have what? Computer science. What other types of sciences? Economics. They classify that as a science in some places. What else?
Astronomy.
Yeah, well, that's pseudoscience, but you know the other ones. We'll just stick with computers. Social sciences, right? So that means they're just gaining knowledge about that subject area. However, when you say natural science, that has an entirely different meaning. That focuses on the method used to attain that knowledge. You understand? So it's really easy to equivocate.
I get that. And that's actually kind of, I think we need, all I'm saying is I think just saying the word science, it's just the word knowledge. So I think all I'm saying is we need to talk about the scientific method, not just pure science, because that's just knowledge. That's all I'm saying. That's all.
And I think you're right. Yeah, we should be saying natural science all the time. Listen, we just assume that, hey, this is the genre that we're in. Everyone knows we're talking about natural science, but you're right, because we got people coming in here saying, wow, science, and they're thinking computer science and social sciences. No, folks. We're talking about the nature of our reality, and that deals with natural science. There's a method associated with that phrase, natural science. It's called the scientific method, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, basically, yeah. I just saying I've just been hearing it a lot, and I think it's on both sides. I think it gets confusing. I just think that's the only reason I'm saying it. We need to be more specific. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, we do, and I agree. I'll try not to be lazy in the future because I haven't been doing that. I'll try to stick with natural science and stop assuming that everyone knows what I'm talking about. But you're right. That's a good point.
Well, it isn't. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with either of you when I say this, but it's not an assumption, or it doesn't need pointing out when the debate is about the Earth. So, in my humble opinion, there is absolutely no necessity to declare that we're talking about the physical and natural world when the subject matter is flat Earth debate. Obviously, we're talking about natural science. Obviously, we're not talking about the ones and zeros and understanding thereof. You know, that's a completely different area. To me, the banner above this show absolutely pigeonholes it unequivocally into natural science, whether you like it or not. I mean, am I wrong in that?
No, you're not wrong. But, you know, we're going to get people coming in here trying to equivocate, because that's what they do. That's what you do when you go between, you know, computer and social sciences and natural science. Well, social science, we have experiments. Nah, you don't have experiments. You don't have experiments to follow the scientific method in natural science. So I do agree with you, Nathan. It's implicit. However, that you get a lot of people in here. It could be two choices. Number one, they're playing dumb, and two, they're equivocating and they don't know it.
I think that's kind of where I'm going. The reason I bring this up, I think it's to kind of put, you know, it's like, you know, we had that on the last show where we put that up there and he pretty much just dismissed it. And I think as long as we keep, you know, even just hammering the same term and hammering the same information, say we're talking about natural science, you know, that's what we're talking about, nothing else, you know. And I think that would help, and just even just saying it over and over and over and over again, it'll eventually stick, hopefully.
So if you are watching this on Nathan Oakley 1980, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. However, if you're watching this on the Nathan Oakley channel, then this is the point that we bid you farewell. A massive, huge, enormous thank you to everybody who tuned in live and smashed the super chat for sharing and joining us in this live debate. Also, a massive thank you to all of the debating panel for making this live debate possible. If you need something to keep you occupied after this live stream has ended, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!